But for now, the final day is the 1st of December. Now questions for me?
The bike ride, are we blocking off Lake Park for a short period of time?
No, no. So all the route is all going to be side streets behind the lake, and then where they'll cross, there will be a police presence there, but there won't be any shutdown of Lake Park.
So they're crossing where at Cape Fear?
Yes, sir.
The anticipation for that, I know that these guys could bring in anywhere between 300 to 500 bicycles.
I think he's got it. Okay.
What time frame, and are we putting that out to the public?
Yes, I will have a press release for that. But they start at 3 o'clock. They have their music and food and vendors at the lake, and then the bike ride begins, I want to say, give or take 6 o'clock, 5:45, with a police presence in front of them as well.
I just have two comments. The neon bike ride is amazing. If you've never participated in it, it really is a great time. And the other thing is the bike rodeo you guys just had on Saturday was just a fantastic event. You know, between the police department and Parks and Rec putting that thing together, there's a lot of work, and it's just
There was
absolutely
a lot of
fantastic.
volunteers. Half the
Fantastic
crowd here, I think,
for our
volunteered for that
community.
event. So
Very well done.
it was awesome. We appreciate it.
One more thing.
Yes, sir.
You said the Christmas parade were about halfway full.
Yes.
Is it the cost, or what's the reason that we're not closer to that capacity, less than a month away?
I'm not 100% sure. It seems like every year folks tend to wait a little bit. But I don't have any doubts that will be a full parade.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Great job. We'll go into our manager's update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. As you know, this weekend, sort of, not, I hate to say it, a perfect storm with a king tide and a low pressure system causing a lot of flooding. Just want to let everybody know we'll be out cleaning the sand off the streets tomorrow on the north end, on CBA North, and working on the walkways shortly after that. We got approval from CAMA to move forward on that. We'll also be doing a limited debris pickup on Canal, some of the side streets, some of the places that saw debris floating around. So if they put it out in the corner, we'll start picking that up next week. It's not be like a hurricane, but pick up, but we will do it, and it'll be done by staff. And we also cleaning up the beach. I think the beach has been cleaned up. We're going to monitor, go look at Freeman Park. There was a lot of erosion there. Hope to open it back up too. So, speaking of that, during this, we used Code Red and social media to put out messages about road closures and things like that. And we just really encourage everybody to sign up, because we can put it out there, but if you're not signed up, you don't get the text message. So we encourage everybody to go to our website and sign up for Code Red, and you'll get text message every time there's a road closure, and we can send them to specific areas if we need. So it's a really good tool we like to use more of. Also, speaking of our website, is reporting issues and work orders. We're getting lots of phone calls and stuff. And on weekends, sometimes, if you want a quick response, go ahead and put a work order in on our website. We can track, and you can track it afterwards and see what is going on with that. So it's another good tool we have to get issues reported and code enforcement, or you see a street light out or whatever you want, you can put it on there. And as mentioned earlier, we'll be talking about parking at the workshop, which will have any proposed policy changes, fee structure changes, any of that will be at the workshop. All right, that's-
Mr. Manager,
Yes,
getting some requests. Are we streaming today? Are we having problems with streaming?
we are now.
And just a question, Bruce. Are we posting road closures on our website, even like when we close for the movie studios?
We're sending messages out. We're doing press releases when we have road closures, trying to. I'm not sure if we get them every time, but we're trying to, anytime we know of one, we'll put it out there on social media and on our website. And if it's going to be a significant closure, we'll put it on Code Red also.
Okay. Any more questions for Bruce?
I don't have a question, but so where it says reporting issues and work orders, for residents that don't understand the town's websites, you can use that on your phone, and it's extremely super easy that anywhere you're out and about, if you see a pothole, light out, a compliance with yard being too tall, you could process that on your phone, put your phone number so that way it can follow up with you. The town would say, hey, what'd you see? Was there an issue? This is going to be addressed in the next week or two. If you've never done that, take a few minutes. It's super easy to navigate through, and it's very beneficial on the town's standpoint from a tangibility reason. That's it.
Thank you.
My stuff for non-agenda.
I have a question, Bruce. I'm looking at this sheet that has the RT, and it says debt service payment for Hamlet Avenue restrooms. Did we move forward with that loan, or?
Yes, we're paying without loan, so we're submitting that debt service for our two reimbursement.
So is that just for that one?
That's just for Hamlet. We're still
Okay.
getting costs on the other restrooms and getting the numbers together with that.
Okay. All right, anything else?
Yes, I always have. So last meeting, Bruce, a couple updates if possible, please. The turn lane into the state park, we loosely addressed that. Have we heard anything from the state?
I've heard that the request was made to the state DOT, the Board of Transportation, went to Speaker of the House, Representative Moore, Speaker Pro Tem Berger, and they both signed off on it. So I think it's in the Board of Transportation's hands now, which I believe means we're in good shape. So we should get funded on a turn lane at State Park.
Thanks. I'll save the rest of mine for non-agenda.
Okay, anything else for Bruce? Okay, we'll move into our public comment. I see quite a few of you have signed up for issues that are we're hearing for a public hearing tonight. So if it is, you can speak at public comment, or you can wait until it's presented, and then you can speak then. So we'll let that be your choice. Patrick Boykin?
My name is Patrick Boykin, 712 Glen Avenue. On August the 12th, the Town Council was presented with 5 petitions. As of today, I think we've gotten a status update back on 2 of those. There are 3 that are still, no response or no updates or anything. 2 of the ones that we got response back on dealt with the Town of Carolina Beach Solid Waste Center and the Dow Road Operations Center, the noise that was presented by those. In one of the responses that Brian responded to, he made reference to that we were nearing the end of the season. Seasonally, our staff are modifying their morning start times to a later time. I don't think it should be seasonally. I think it should be annually. It should be the same all year long. It shouldn't change with the season to go back to a 5:30 morning pickup or anything like that.
You're right. And we'll have Bruce address that, because I heard that same complaint from someone else, but at a different location.
And also, the other 3 petitions, like I say, we've not heard anything from, and that has to do with some of the through traffic in the Ocean Heights neighborhood that are affecting, people over there and families with small kids, where that is where the Town of Carolina Beach cuts through the neighborhood to, I guess, get to Old Bridge Barrier Road. I guess that's what they're doing. And we would also like to get some indication as to the through traffic for not necessarily Carolina Beach Operations Center, but for anybody using that as through traffic, if we could get some maybe no through traffic signs or something of that nature put up. There's also a couple of petitions in regards to the expansion that's going on at Sun Fun Golf Cart Rental, as far as the landscaping things of that nature that we've not heard back from. So I would appreciate an update of some sort
I hear you.
to say, we're looking at it, we're not going to look at it, or just a status update.
Bruce, are you the point of contact on those issues? Because I know Patrick has been up a couple of times talking about them.
We've had discussions on the through traffic with town vehicles, and I think Brian said, we're trying to control that. As far as local traffic cutting through, I don't know what we can do, but we'll look into it. And I don't know if Jeremy's got any updates on the landscaping for Sun Fun. But
I did meet with the owner's designer, and they plan on the current use of the bait and tackle, they're going to be there until July, and then at that time they were going to be, I was told they'll be removing the building and redeveloping the site, and at that time they will be installing landscaping.
What's the procedure as far as fencing is involved? You know, is there, it's chain link now, and you know, they're unloading some of the vehicles on Glen Avenue and things like that. So,
Patrick, I'm gonna see if I can get the manager to contact you.
okay,
Or can you just, I think he probably has your contact
Yeah, I've got it.
information.
I sure do.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. And those are very legitimate issues we need to look at, and if we can get some signage, that would be great too. Don Pierce? Sorry? Okay. Dan McNutt?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council, Madam Mayor. My name is Dan McNutt. I'm the founder and CEO of UPP Global LLC. We are a full-service parking management company operating as NC Parking Co. here in.
Dan, will you pull that microphone up just a little
Yep.
bit? You're tall.
Can you hear me now? All right. Operating as NC Parking Co. Here in Wilmington and Carolina Beach. We had the privilege of participating in the RFP process in the spring to submit a proposal for parking management to the town of Carolina Beach, as well as most recently in the fall. I wanted to take the opportunity tonight just to clarify some of the key points of our proposal in case there was any confusion or anybody had any questions in regards to the nature of our financial guarantees. We, based on the analysis of the, historical performance of the municipal parking, when we did our proposal in the spring, when we looked at historical revenue data, we made what is a base minimum guarantee. So that is a bonded, guaranteed base minimum amount of revenue, NOI to the town of 1.5 million. Anything above and beyond that, there would be a revenue split, and we cap ourselves at a certain number. So if we perform over and above that, even the majority of that upside goes to the town. In addition to that base minimum guarantee, we proposed a $100,000 check to the town in order to reimburse any capital equipment expenses that you may have incurred for the parking department in the last 12 months or so. And as we revisited the proposal in the fall, while we didn't have access when we prepared the proposal to year-to-date financials, we've been able to determine that there has been an increase percentage-wise in the total operating revenue in the parking department. So we our commitment in our response to the RFP was that we would make an adjustment on that percentage to our base minimum. And I wanted to make it clear that we would be bonded and guaranteed a base minimum of $1,650,000, as a number that you can take to the budget, and that's guaranteed. We're very confident in our ability. We've got 5 years of operating history here in Carolina Beach now, and a good team and understanding of the market. We've got over 40 locations here in New Hanover County. We have over 300 locations in 9 states nationally, and a lot of experience in this field. So I wanted to make sure and make these points as clear as possible, just kind of the main points of the proposal, and appreciate the opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dan. We appreciate that. And we have tabled the discussion on parking until our workshop. So thank you. Melissa? Okay. All right, very good. Anybody else would like to make a public comment? Okay, well then we'll move into our public hearings. And I'm going to make a motion that we open the public hearing to consider conditional zoning for mixed-use commercial residential development located at 902, 910, 1000 1010 North Lake Park Boulevard. All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor, Council, good evening. The applicant, Cape Fear 4 LLC, has applied for a conditional zoning district to consider a mixed-use commercial residential project. The application is for 4 parcels. One of them is included, highlighted here, and it does include the Jersey Mike's property. They're not redeveloping it, but they are making some site changes and closing the 2 driveway cuts and reconfiguring their parking. So it will act as essentially a out parcel for the project, but will be individually owned from separate. The project is in the Highway Business Zoning District, and the purpose of the highway business is to serve the entire community and beyond. It's located on a major thoroughfare, which is North Lake Park Boulevard, and really meaning that it's conveniently reached by automobile and dependent sending heavy automobile traffic through to avoid smaller streets and residential areas. With the mixed-use commercial, this is allowed by conditional zoning. So conditional zoning is a little bit of a newer process to the town as we converted away from conditional use permits, where you didn't have to require the 4 general conditions and the 7 specific standards. The purpose of conditional zoning allows a bit more flexibility within the process, allows for to better get the community and to hear public comment earlier on in the process. It is allowed in accordance with very specific standards and conditions pertaining to that individual specific site. And the reason is to ensure compatibility and enjoyment of the neighboring properties. The standards, they can include things like landscaping, design guidelines, buffers, infrastructure improvements, your water, your sewer, pedestrian improvements, street and right-of-way. And when you're evaluating an application for conditional zoning, there's 3 specific criteria for council to review. And one is the consistency overall with the Town of Carolina Beach Land Use Plan and the ordinance. The second is potential impacts and benefits of the surrounding areas and the adjoining properties. So you're looking at whether the benefits and also the impacts. And then you're also looking from that, there's a required public meeting where the public can, early on in the process, can comment and you get that public input. And what are the results of those public meetings? What were the concerns or any issues, or what did the public like about the project? And in its way, so the time that it does come to town council, if there are any changes in the project or conditions that the applicant may want to put in place to present to council to help mitigate any impacts, or maybe there's a project amenity that is desired, then they can incorporate those changes. Just quickly, just want to talk about the site where the former use of Jubilee Park used to be, and the site is really in 2 major parcels. There is a 6.5 parcel which was Jubilee Park, and in 1978, when the rides moved from the boardwalk, they were closing down. They actually moved those rides to up north to vacant land off of North Lake Park Boulevard. It closed down in 2004 when it was bought, and there was a proposal to Jubilee Village, which was 110 condo units, a mixed-use project as well. That never was built, but it was approved as well as the Harris Teeter in 2017, and there were some modifications up to 2019 for that. And there's a 5-acre property just to the south of that, which was the mini golf in 1992. It was approved by the town. They incorporated the jungle golf and also the arcade, And in 1998, they incorporated the batting cages as well. But now the site has been cleared. And what's going on there as of today, you'll see a bunch of FM signs for Florida Man as they're using it as their staging area and parking. But the property shown here, this is the site plan that is superimposed onto the site. It is adjacent to the Publix, and as well as in the highway business and commercial areas. And then across the street from St. Joseph is commercial development with Tom's Marine, as well as the Carolina Beach Yacht and Boat Yard. The proposal is for 7 buildings that will incorporate 261 residential units. They will all have residential units except for Building 5, which is adjacent to existing Jersey Mike's and next to Lake Park Boulevard, which will just be all commercial. The total commercial square footage for the site is 44,111 square feet, which every building will have an element of commercial except for Building 7 here, which will have actually garages and units above the garages, as depicted as defined as carriage houses per the plan. All the buildings will be less than 50 feet in height. They will have a multi-use path is proposed, 8 foot off of adjacent to St. Joseph as well as Lake Park Boulevard, and they'll be interconnected with an 8 foot multi-use path going through the site as well. They are we handling the stormwater on site. It'll be over an acre pond that will be incorporated. They also are saving the existing oak trees that are on the site, and they will be moving one of them into the roundabout. So they're making an effort to keep the existing vegetation on site. The property is 12.01 acres, excluding the Jersey Mike's, because there is a requirement in the ordinance that's for a mixed-use development in the highway business is that you have to have 3,000 square feet of commercial space per acre. This comes up to equal 36,030 square feet. They are providing for inside area that 44,111 that I mentioned before, with an additional, if you count their outdoor dining, retail, amenity area, and pool, it brings the site up to 57,711 square feet of commercial space, well above the requirement. For you is the site plan. The dimensional requirements for lot coverage, they could build up to 60%. For structures, they're only proposing 17%. As I mentioned, the height limit will be max is 50 feet. They will be below that. The number of required parking spaces for all the residential units as well as all the commercial uses is 525 spaces. They are providing 527. They are required to have a type B, which is a 10-foot landscape buffer around the perimeter of the property. They are meeting this except as depicted on the site plan on the north side adjacent to where the Wings property is and along the drive where the Publix interconnectivity will be located. And they will have they will have the sidewalks, which is required is a 5 foot in this area, but they are providing, as I mentioned, 8 foot the multi-use pass on the adjacent right-of-ways. They are meeting the setbacks, and I will mention that they are closing the Jersey Mike's driveway cuts, and they're only going to have 1 driveway cut off of Lake Park Boulevard with 2 driveway cuts off of St. Joseph. They'll have interconnectivity through the Publix property as well. there were a couple of changes they did make from comments from Planning and Zoning Commission. The original plan, when they were designing for a turning lane into the site off of Lake Park Boulevard to accommodate a right turn, was to reduce the sidewalk or the multi-use path off of adjacent to Lake Park Boulevard was to 6 foot, but they've actually accommodated the 8 foot to keep that consistent. As well as there is some town property that's adjacent to the site that connects it to Winter Avenue. The plan had pedestrian connection to Winter Avenue. They did change that to potential pedestrian connection to Winter Avenue, and this is a result because on that town property it actually serves a lift station on there that takes up majority of frontage. So they were wanting to, before they commit to anything, they were wanting to look at the feasibility to see if that could actually be constructed and how much room you actually have with it when time you design the sidewalk without interference with the lift station. In the conditional zoning process, as I mentioned, they are required a meeting, and that happened on the August 26th. But they also had some additional meetings on their own. They went above and beyond several meetings they had with the public and made themselves available. The applicant has provided summary of those comments in your packet. And based off those comments, the applicant has proposed conditions for you to consider tonight. And council may include additional standards if you see fit. And you also can accept those conditions that the applicant is presenting, any of them, a couple of them, or that you've heard from during the review process. So those conditions that the applicant is presenting, and these conditions would need to be agreed upon by council and the applicant for approval. One is to provide, as I mentioned before, the 8-foot multi-use path on St. Joseph Street and North Lake Park Boulevard, connecting the public right-of-way with the interior 8-foot multi-use path. All lighting should be aimed and directed to be handled internally into the site, not to adjoin on adjacent properties. Install all recommendations of the traffic impact analysis and add a crosswalk and traffic signal at Winter Avenue with approval of DOT up to $300,000. Now, this is something that they did hear from the public, and staff has talked to them about, hey, what traffic improvements can we do on Winter and Lake Park Boulevard? They have recognized that, as well as DOT, that there is a signal warranted in that intersection. So what improvements can we have? And they've offered up to $300,000. The applicant feels that that should be adequate to provide, from their experience, a side or the signal access and vehicular signal. They're just not in a position. The reason they capped it was to acquire any additional land if needed, because they wouldn't have that ability. Also, we need to provide daily usage water and sewer to our utility department and make any improvements as required by public utilities. The parking and access easements to be recorded for usage of the Jersey Mike's property. Keeping all the existing live oaks as depicted on the site plan. And they're offering to prohibit, this again was comments that they heard from the public meetings, prohibit residential units from being rented out for a period of less than 90 days for short-term rentals. And also to cooperate with the town to reasonably access the viability of that pedestrian access to Winter Avenue. And also another comment that they heard from the public meetings as a condition that they're offering is memberships to the swimming pool shall be available to residents of Carolina Beach. During the meeting at during Planning and Zoning Commission, they offered to say, well, could you look out for also to our friends of the South at Curry Beach? And they said yes, they would. So that's the reason why Curry Beach is in there.
The land use plan, in the vision of this area is for higher density with a mix of uses within the district and individual buildings. And it does allow for, it mirrors the ordinance where if it's greater than 10 acres of property, which again, this is 12.01 acres, you would have to meet that 3,000 square feet of commercial space per acre, which they do. There's other desired elements of the land use plan that they have incorporated that supports the plan, which on Lake Park Boulevard, reducing driveways to improve safety and increasing pedestrian connectivity. Also, with the enhanced pedestrian access and the multi-use facilities along major corridors and between key destinations. And also traffic improvements on Lake Park Boulevard and Winter Avenue as well. Before you have the motion for approval or denial, planning and zoning as well as staff, they did recommend approval at their last meeting. And that it was consistent with the land use plan, and I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for staff?
Not at the moment. I'll hold mine.
Okay. Would the applicant like to present?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Brian Eckel, 1051 Military Cutoff, Wilmington, North Carolina, 28405. I'm going to give a very brief introduction because I know I've been up here multiple times and introduce myself and our team, but here goes one last time. Ben Wells and I started Cape Fear Commercial 20 years ago in September of 2001. We have 32 employees that call New Hanover County their home. Bill Shuttlecotty, also on our team, and Mike Brown. Ben, Bill, and I are lifelong residents of New Hanover County. Bill's been here 16 years. We brought up other team members with us. Josh Mahaley, over in the corner, is our landscape architect. Jonathan Guy, sitting right in front of him, is our traffic engineer, who you'll hear from later. Wes Quarter, sitting in the front row, is our civil and site design consultant, along with John Tunstall, our civil engineer, and finally Sam Frank, who you'll hear from as well. I'm not going to go through the project experience. I think we've done this a few times. But we're developing a couple projects right now. Autumn Hall, where we've got 90,000 square feet of Class A office. New Hanover Government Center, we're developing 130,000 square foot government center with a Cat 5 rated EOC, Emergency Operations Center, 911 Center. Obviously, y'all have heard us say it before, but we developed the Publix directly across the street and adjacent to the site. As Jeremy mentioned, we've had a number of community meetings. It's actually up to 25 now that we've had and been down at Carolina Beach. We don't plan on stopping. It's our style. We engage with the public. We want the public to be involved in this every step of the way and feel as much ownership and pride as we do on this project. We also have a website that we've been using to communicate, and we'll continue to update that to communicate with the residents. Project milestones. You know, a lot of people want to know, when is this project going to actually deliver? So this was, as Jeremy said, we were fortunate to have unanimous approval from planning on October 14th. We're here tonight on November 9th, hopefully to get your blessing, and then the real work starts. We move straight into a lengthy and rigorous TRC process. We like to think we can do that in 4 to 6 months. Realistically, it takes 7 months or so. We'll stagger that a little bit with the architectural design. You can see we've actually built in 2 months. There'll be more than 2 months of opportunity to comment on our plan, but we plan to hold additional community meetings to make sure that we think the community is heading in the right direction with our design. Then finally, construction and delivery. If we start in September, it's about a 20-month build. As we've said before, we built the Publix in 183 days. This is a little bit different scale of a project. It's going to take longer. 20 months is pretty conservative. We'd hope to actually build it in about 16. The site plan, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Brown and let him go through some of the technical aspects of the land use plan and our plan. I'm here to answer any questions after the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for your time here tonight. My name is Mike Brown. I live at 1922 Brookhaven Road in Wilmington, North Carolina. I'm a partner with Cape Fear 4. I wanted to speak a little bit about the Cameron Land Use Plan. I know a lot of effort and resources went into coming up with that plan in 2020, which was a pretty well thought out plan. 13 goals were listed in the Cameron Land Use Plan on page 10. I'm just going to hit a few of the brief highlights. I do believe that our plan serves all of those goals with the exception of there's one or two goals about things like tree nourishment, which we're unable to directly impact. But the goals that we could impact, I felt like we fulfilled very nicely. I'll just hit a few of those highlights. Goal number 1 was to enhance the functionality and appearance of major thoroughfares and gateways. We are proposing on the plan improvements to Lake Park Boulevard streetscape. We're going to add street trees and pedestrian multi-use path trail, which will run the length of that frontage. And then the trail will connect through the site to St. Joseph. And this is all in keeping with the land use plan. It was also mentioned in y'all's 2008 master development plan, so it's consistent with that as well. Goal number 5 was to preserve the natural beauty through the protection of unique habitats, water quality, wetlands, and mature trees. As an initial step in the process, we commissioned a tree survey, which is here on the screen. Though the town doesn't have a tree ordinance, we do think this was an important step, and we've had great success with other projects we worked on, mainly Autumn Hall, and using the trees to our benefit and activating those spaces. So we came up with a tree survey to start with, and then we started planning around the survey. This is the site plan before you tonight. It does have the trees, the original trees, the mature trees that we plan to keep shown on there. We place great focus on the preservation of these trees, and in addition, we protected the significant live oaks, which are down in the back near the storm pond. Some of them are very nice. One in particular, I believe, in my opinion, might be a top 10 live oak in New York County. We then activated the green spaces, which highlight these trees, with connections to the trail system. So the trail system will connect from Lake Park Boulevard back to St. Joseph. And the intention here is to create an experience whereby through our design, these spaces become functional and can actually be used. It's one thing to create green spaces, but if they're not functional, nobody really gets the benefit of them. So we tried to create some functionality using the trail system as a connection. Goal number 7 was to reduce and mitigate the negative effects of stormwater and flooding. The plan will incorporate low-impact design from a stormwater management perspective and also include infiltration opportunities and bioretention. This is in addition to the 1.2-acre storm pond, which is at the back left-hand side of the site, which will allow for additional treatment that's currently not being taken advantage of with the current site, so it will be treated before it leaves the site. Goal number 8 was to sustain a healthy and vibrant locally oriented economy which respects tourism. We're going to specifically target targeted local entrepreneurs from the community and beyond, and we think this is very important to the tent mix in terms of placemaking and creating an experience that's authentic and vibrant. Goal number 10 was to enhance mobility for pedestrians, bicyclists, and non-traditional vehicles. As I've already mentioned, we're extending the multi-use trail through the site to St. Joseph, and St. Joseph has the Island Greenway Trail system runs down the length of St. Joseph, so we'll tie into that, and we'll encourage visiting proximity using this trail system. Goal number 11 was to reduce traffic and parking congestion and ensure adequate access for emergency services. Number 1, we have provided adequate parking on the site plan, and then the mixture uses within the plan represents a reduction in trip generation versus just a purely commercial site plan, because you get the benefits of internal trip capture that comes with mixed use. Additionally, we've accommodated golf cart parking and charging stations, and we're going to have things like bike racks, et cetera, so people can visit the site on their bikes. Our traffic engineer is here tonight, and he was going to present a little bit later and be able to answer some additional questions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sam Frank. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Sam Frank. My contact information is in the application, which is in the record. Jeremy or Ed, would you be kind enough to maximize that so we can see a little bit better detail on the site plan? think if you just hit Control L. Thank you. I appreciate that. The subject property is in the Highway Business District, and there are a number of uses that are permitted in the Highway Business District. The list on the screen is but an example. Amongst those several uses that are permitted in the Highway Business District is commercial residential mixed use, which is what we're proposing here. Your future land use plan contemplates character areas throughout the city and establishes those for the sake of identifying the highest and best use for any area of land. This subject property is located in the purple bubble in the middle of the screen. That purple bubble is designated as best used for commercial residential mixed use. Today, much of the land in that purple bubble is utilized for exclusively commercial uses. This site is surrounded by well-established businesses, as you can see mapped out on the diagram on the screen. There are also some exclusively residential uses included in that land use area down here at the southern end. There's very limited mixing of uses so far, and of course that's exactly what this project is proposed to do. This development will fill that void, incorporating an appropriate blend of uses on the site that will complement the existing established commercial uses around it. The uses included in the development: restaurant, office, retail, fitness, live work, multifamily residential. This development will be a substantial benefit to the community. The development's been thoughtfully designed to incorporate active commercial uses along Lake Park Boulevard, with lower impact commercial and residential uses prioritized towards the center and middle of the site along the St. Joseph Street corridor. Pedestrian interconnectivity is a significant priority, as demonstrated on the face of the site plan. As such, the development will provide value and benefits to the community as a whole, not just the members that choose to live, the citizens that choose to live at the proximity. As you know, we've had significant community engagement. It's far from a perfunctory exercise on this development. Substantial interaction with the citizens of the town of Carolina Beach have led to really constructive and useful suggestions and comments that have found their way into the plan. The screen demonstrates some of the impact of some of those comments, how those comments have been incorporated into the evolution of this design. Significant open green space, streetscape improvements, pedestrian and bicycle interconnectivity, an engineered drainage system to address stormwater management, tree preservation, a resort-style pool and fitness facility that will be made available to citizens on a member basis, and significant accommodations for golf carts, electrical vehicles, and including charging stations and allocated parking. As is always the case with any significant development, there's been a significant amount of conversation about traffic. What is the real impact of this development on traffic on the surrounding roads? As Mike mentioned, the traffic impact for this particular project is not only substantially less than a commercial by right use on this site, but also substantially less than the most recently approved conditional use that you saw for this site. To talk in a little bit more detail about our traffic analysis that leads to those conclusions, I'd like to invite our traffic engineer, Jonathan Guy, to speak to you for a minute.
Good evening. Jonathan Guy, 115 Fairchild Street, Charleston, South Carolina. Madam Mayor, members of council, thank you for your time this evening. This project is an interesting project. I've looked at this project for more than 12 years in a variety of different formats, and so I understand the intimate nature associated with this development and what it will generate. And while I do have to answer to you tonight, I have a higher power too that I have to answer to, and that's my family that lives on Pleasure Island. So know that whatever you may want to talk about, I have to talk about that with them as well and face them with this. So what I'm going to tell you tonight is that this development is less intense than what's already been previously approved for this project area. We started out scoping this with the Wilmington MPO and the North Carolina Department of Transportation. You can see the 5 study intersections associated with the driveways and the 6 major intersections that are tied to the site. We've looked at all of these. We collected new traffic counts. We used old traffic counts. We considered COVID factors. We've looked at this a variety of different ways to understand what the impacts are going to be associated with this development. As I mentioned, and has been mentioned, this site is proposed to generate a significantly less amount of volume than what was previously proposed. Roughly 2,100 daily trips, 147 AM peak hour trips, and 181 PM peak hour trips. When we compare that to what was previously proposed going back to 2017 and 2019, you can see that the daily trips are reduced by a factor of 4. The AM peak hour trips are reduced by a factor of 2, and the PM trips are reduced by a factor of 3. So we're significantly reducing the trips associated with this development on the same piece of property. You may ask why that is. Well, when you start to consider and bring connected land uses together, trips become combined. You have internal capture associated with that, and you're combining trips that don't have to go elsewhere to accommodate what they need to. Residents can walk, they can ride their bike, they can connect to land uses that are important to them, be it whether they work there or they shop across the street, meaning the Publix. They have that ability and never have to interface with North Lake Park. The study is currently being reviewed by the NCDOT and the Wilmington MPO. We are working with them on mitigating the associated development or following their TIA protocols for mitigation. We did recommend a right turn lane. I will tell you that based on NCDOT guidance, that turn lane is not warranted, but we did recommend it, and we are proposing to build that. We've also included a traffic warrant analysis or traffic signal warrant analysis for the intersection of Winter Avenue and North Lake Park. And that's been a lot of discussion, so let's talk about what we did. So to warrant a traffic study, you've got to look at 11 specific traffic signal warrants that are published by the Manual Uniform Traffic Control Devices, or the MUTCD, which is what every single agency utilizes across the United States to warrant traffic signals. Of those 11 warrants, we've got a total of 6 that are applicable for consideration here. When we look at not only the new 13-hour counts that we did on Tuesday, September 21st of this year, but also traffic counts that were conducted by the NCDOT and then grown to a 2021 volume based on what we see, even considering the development, if we consider it just straight analysis, a traffic signal is not warranted. However, in the MUTCD, it gives you guidance that allows you to consider a reduced threshold, roughly 70% of what the warrant criteria is if you are an isolated community with a population of less than 10,000. Your last census population is well below 10,000. Considering you have one point of access on and off the island, I would consider you an isolated community. You also know that when you create a traffic signal location, individuals are going to adjust their trips because it gives or assigns a break-in right-of-way. So while we have the warrants associated with that, and when we consider that criteria, we do warrant a traffic signal at this location. I strongly believe that by putting a traffic signal at this location would be beneficial to the overall operations along North Lake Park Boulevard, and are working with NCDOT to discuss this and move this forward. I'll be happy to
Question
answer.
for you.
Sure.
Over here. That 13-hour traffic count was on a Tuesday, 2.5 weeks after Labor Day, which is ideally when the island is completely dead.
Sure.
I would love to see those numbers during our peak times during the summertime.
Sure.
Because those lights between are so far few that that's where the issue arises. So that number kind of isn't a true number for us because we have to anticipate our visitors.
I understand that. And we utilized summer counts as well when we looked at 2019. So essentially what we did was we took the factors associated with those movements from 2019, which was a summer count. We took the 2021 count that we did and we factored those volumes up so that it did reflect a summer peak factor, which is traditional on how NCDOT and the Wilmington MPO likes to handle volumes when you collect that data. I recognize the fact that it is your non-traditional peak, if you will, but it also considers school peak during that time too. So their approach was consider a summer peak, but also consider the school peak associated with that, give us our best case. so that we could look at the analysis associated with that.
About 4 years ago, we had a traffic study, and one of the reasons that we were told that we should not have a stoplight at Winters, the criteria we didn't meet. And one of the criteria is that you have to have sidewalks on all four corners in order before you move forward. At that location, if you go back and look at that photo, there's only two sides of that. So I don't know what that game plan would be or how you would attach that to try to move forward with them.
Yeah, so that's an interesting criteria. It's not one of the 11 criteria. Pedestrians volume is a criteria that looks at that from the MUTCD. I understand where NCDOT is likely coming from that standpoint is that they want to build traffic signals that are multimodal and accommodate pedestrians, bicyclists, as well as vehicles, right? That's why there's been a consideration for the amount of $300,000 associated with that would allow for construction of crosswalks, pedestrian ramps at those locations, and then the necessary hardware to obviously run the signal, but also to mount the signal. If you're familiar with that, you know that you've got heavy utilities coming down on the west side of the corridor. You've got poles on the opposite side over there. You really have two corners that are really viable for a traffic signal pole installation. Traditionally, power companies and NCDOT do not like to commingle signals. So in this case, you could look at a twin mast arm configuration doing opposite or diagonal corners from the Lazy Pirate over to the Burt's, where you don't have utility conflicts there. The amount of money that we've considered with this and proffered would cover that type of design. We have to work with NCDOT on that. There's some benefits associated with mast arms, especially in coastal areas where you're at least a level 4 wind zone, so you don't have movement of the heads. But again, there's maintenance issues associated with that. All that has to work through the design. Specifically to your point, the ramps would be in place with the crosswalks for consideration of pedestrians.
I'd like to dwell on that for a second.
Sure.
Can you back up one slide? The photograph that Jodan was talking about.
Yep.
I have a little bit of a question for you, and maybe it's for staff as well. Would there be right-of-way on the right side? We have sidewalks on the other side, but one of the things we have tried to accomplish and wanted to see is, are you proposing a sidewalk on the frontage of your property or the subject property, inside the right-of-way or on your property line? Do you know?
I don't know. I'll let someone else answer that question.
Right, and that was a question I had. I don't know, do we have right-of-way enough to facilitate a sidewalk over there? When you look at Burt's and
Yeah.
Hoplite.
golf cart
Yeah,
shop,
approximately from the curb of Lake Park Boulevard, there's 5 feet of right of way before you get to the property line. So the sidewalk would have to be,
like the other side of the street, right on the curb.
correct.
Which is not really attractive to DOT. I mean, they generally want some separation on the sidewalk from the curb.
They do, but it also can create a maintenance issue to maintain that strip that's there. So traditionally, what you will see is that, and what I would recommend is that any pedestrian accommodations you can provide are better than none. So a 5-foot sidewalk does at least make the connection.
Well, in this case, it might be one of those pedestrian connections that we ask you guys to provide. So we've talked about coming out winter and looking at that. I just need to
Sure.
hear from staff at some point if that $300,000 number that's set out would potentially facilitate that sidewalk from the lift station down to winter and back up in front of the golf cart shop or if not, if there's something the town needs to start looking at. Because we have been trying for a number of years to get a sidewalk
Sure.
for the connectivity there. And putting a stoplight there could encourage pedestrians to cross. But if all it is a ramp and a stoplight, you're either standing in the dirt or you're standing in the parking lot. So we just have to kind of look at that. Which
Sure.
would be something I would ask you guys to continue to consider.
Another question for you.
Sure.
If you go to the next photo that showed the layout of everything, it was brought to my attention, I brought this up to Brian before. So originally when we approved Publix, they wanted no interconnectivity with that adjoining lot. Is that something that's been remedied? Is that cool?
Okay, any more questions on traffic?
I think what Jodan's asking is have you guys secured some kind of interconnectivity agreement with the adjacent property owner?
As long as we don't put a Harris Teeter there, we'll have interconnectivity. Yeah, and yes, we'll have an easement. Yeah.
reason I was getting to that traffic count really quick, sorry to backstep, was because during the off-season, left-hand turns are an issue on this island. Without having a stoplight into that property and a stoplight right at that Publix, you're looking at 100, 150 feet. That's going to create an issue for the residents who live there wanting to turn as well as visitors behind them. So I'm trying to hit all angles to see what's going to be an issue because left turns are a huge problem here in CB.
I understand, and you're dealing with a constrained corridor in the sense of 4 lanes without a center turn lane through there. But I will remind you that what was previously approved generates far more traffic associated with this. It was approved by NCDOT. The traffic signal there at Publix accommodates an advanced left turn to help cue or clear that out. You could do the very same thing. Depending on time of day, directionality of flow, if a traffic signal is warranted at winter as well. So you have a leading phase to clear the left.
Thank you.
I don't want to curtail the conversation about traffic. There's a significant contingent of the development team here tonight, as there has been at each public hearing for a reason. The developer's committed to answering your questions with the experts who know the answers, and so please, to the extent that you have questions for us throughout this process, don't hesitate to ask. The conditions that were proposed and discussed at Planning Board and ultimately recommended by the Planning Board to you as reflected in your packet are acceptable to the applicant. And I'm not going to go through them because I think they're well laid out there. But obviously, have any questions about those conditions or want to discuss the details of any of those conditions, we're certainly glad to do so. At this point, I'd like to reserve the right to come back and speak to you again after the public hearing. If you have any questions for us before the public hearing, we're here and interested to answer them.
Are there questions?
Not at the moment.
I have one, just a little clarity. There's been a lot of talk about whether it be short-term rentals or long-term rentals. Is this, are the units up for individual sale, or are they true apartment complex to be managed on site?
The latter, it's a for rent housing product. We managed on site, and we've already agreed to a condition that would restrict this to rentals no less than 90 days. In practice, they're going to be annual rentals.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay. Well, we're going to open it up to the public, and we'll let you come back and answer any questions they have.
Thank you, Madam Mayor,
Okay.
members of the council.
Thanks.
We start with the ones who signed up. Don, do you want to come up and speak first?
Don Pierce, live at 1606 Searay Lane. I like what Joe Dan was saying about the traffic and the left turns, and I don't think that's really adequately answered. Saturday, the change days for in the summer. If these fellows have never come to Carolina Beach, you need to do it because it's backed up all the way to Monkey Junction to get on the beach. And Dow Road is backed up in the afternoons with people trying to get off the south end and the north end on Saturdays and Sundays, and the same coming in for the mornings to get on north and south end. The units you're bringing in, you have lessened them and you've lessened your traffic impact, but it's still of a concern to people that have lived here for a lot of years, and I'm not opposed to development. We have to have development. I understand that. But coming on the island and people wanting to turn left even into Publix, is there a turn signal there to go left with other traffic? It has to stop for you? There's not, is there? It's just a turn signal. So let's say you add minimum, you got, I think I heard 200 and some apartments, and then plus the workers. Let's say a minimum daily in the summer of people. I know you're saying internal, people are going to go there to shop, but the people that even live on the island don't use all the stuff here on the island. They go off the island to Lowe's, Walmart, places like that. So they're not going to stay in there and shop in there. So you're going to have to add them into what goes on and off the island every day and what goes in on Lake Park Boulevard. And it's just a lot of traffic. And it's a real concern for the people that live here that has to put up with that traffic on a daily basis. And everybody I know go to all those businesses on Lake Park, Island Tackle, Bames, Publix, everything. And then if we got to put up with a bunch more cars going there, it's going to really, I think, it's just going to be hard. I really think it is. I did like the fact, and y'all have done your homework, and you put on a very good presentation. I do like the fact that you addressed your stormwater on site. I wish I could get stormwater on site at my house, but that's a different subject. 43 seconds. I was just wondering, have we figured out where all the extra well water is coming for this project? And then my last question, we had another project. Why are we trying to rush through this right now at the end of the year when most of y'all will not be here coming January 1st? I'm not saying you haven't done a good job. I think all of you have, but I'm just questioning the rush of going ahead and doing this right now. Let's wait till the incoming administration comes, get a fresh look at it, and I'm late for the public comments, but this is my first night here, and I'll be glad to come back again if it starts over again.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Melissa? Melissa, are you still here? Do you want to come up and speak? Okay.
All right, good evening, everyone, Mayor, Council. He pretty much said everything that I wanted to
Melissa,
say.
can you state your name and your address for
Oh,
us,
yes,
please?
I'm sorry. Melissa Herzog. I live at 317 Lewis the Drag Strip Drive. So that is what I will add to this conversation is we have 2 exits coming out of this on St. Joseph, and there is no discussion as to who's going to be barreling down Lewis Drive to get off of this island or onto this island because they want to avoid the left turn on Lake Park Boulevard. I am not opposed to development. I think this is a rather large development. It is my understanding that they have allowed 1 parking space per apartment building, and these are 1, 2, and 3 apartment buildings. I am concerned that they cannot contain themselves, much less us getting in there if we don't ride our bicycles, if we're coming from Curie Beach and we don't want to navigate all the way through town to get to this project. We have to drive. So how are we going to be accommodated? How are we to support these businesses? Well, that's pretty much it. He said it. I live on Lewis Drive. I'm concerned about what this traffic is going to do to us because we're not talking about that. We're hitting St. Joseph. We're hitting Winter. We're hitting Lake Park Boulevard. And clearly some of these people are going to be rolling up and down our road. We already have people who are driving 65, 70 miles an hour in box trucks, tractor trailers, dump trucks, SUVs, with no consideration. We have absolutely no police enforcing anything. Nobody is there. There's nothing going on to contain this, and this is just going to get worse as people try to enter their development, our island, and everything else that we have. So I wish that you would table this vote and not vote on this today. Wait until our new mayor, our new council members come, and let's get some more studies done and have a clearer picture of impact on our community, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Would anyone else from the public like to speak? Come on up.
Covered pretty good, but Melissa and Don have pretty much mentioned my concerns, and one of the big ones is summertime. I think their count is after summer. Our summertime, we've seen the backup coming onto the beach from Monkey Junction to here, and somebody wants to make a left-hand turn. Everything stops. You won't be able to get to the businesses on the west side of Lake Park, where we have a lot of them. You'll be able to get in the Publix because you've got a stoplight there, but I think it'll hurt the other businesses. The other one is water and sewer. How will this affect our water and sewer? Our water quality is questionable at best right now on a good day. what's it gonna be like on the 3 major holidays? Do we have the infrastructure adequate to supply water and sewer to the quality it needs to be for those days with this extra influx of people and businesses? That's a big concern to me. Other than that, yeah, the racetrack on Lewis Road is going to be wild. But that's about it. Thank you.
Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Anybody else? Come on up. Yeah, come on up.
Evening.
My name's Jan Bradish. I live at 203 7th Street North in Carolina Beach. And I just want to agree with everything that was just said. The traffic impact worries me a lot. Currently, when traffic is backed up on Dow Road, people speed down my street, 7th Street, to try and get around and get out. And it becomes a highway. And I've been wanting to put signs up that say, is the speed limit still 25, or child at play, or something, because it's just dangerous. I also am concerned about not knowing enough about the impact of this development. I don't think it's a good idea to go ahead with the development and then study the resulting impact. I think having an idea, a better idea going into it makes more sense. And I would agree with tabling this vote and letting the new administration take a really good, hard look at this. So, thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up, Patrick.
Patrick Boykin, 712 Glen Avenue. My concern is the traffic flow as well. I live over in Ocean Heights, which is right across the street. On heavy weekends, you cannot turn left out of Ocean Heights, which means I would have to turn right and go down to Harper Avenue. Then I go down to Lake Park Boulevard, and then I get caught up in the traffic on Lake Park Boulevard because the increased heavy traffic. And there's another way that I could go Old Dow Road and come out on Lewis Drive, but then you've got the Lewis Drive traffic impact as well. So the heavy traffic is a big concern for this project. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, no takers. Would the applicant like to come up and address the concerns?
The lawyer's going to stand up first, but again, please don't hesitate to ask for a representative of the developer or one of the experts if you're so inclined. Just very briefly in response, with regard to traffic, please focus on the impact of a true mixed-use development versus the current entirely commercial development that's most recently been proposed on the site. And if you have questions about what that trip generation means and how it was created and the like, Jonathan's here and eager to answer your questions about that. Healthy development does not encourage the violation of the law. There's nothing about this that encourages more people to speed or litter or do things that they're not supposed to do. I've not been involved in a development project that had this level of community involvement before. I don't
Welcome
think
to
I've been
CB.
involved. I beg your pardon?
Welcome to Carolina Beach.
No, it's fantastic. And as we've talked about throughout the evening, the dialogue over the last 4 or 5 months that's helped us tune this project to make it not only a more effective project and a more viable project, but a project that fits better in the community in which it's nestled is truly fantastic. And a good part of the strength of that application comes out of the dialogue with the 5 of you. And so thank you for your commitment and your involvement in that. And please know the value of that. We certainly do and appreciate the time and effort that you've put into it and the fact that you have an opportunity tonight to consider that really the final zoning decision on this project. If you have any questions for our experts or for me, I'm here.
Just for clarity, and I know you know this, I think Melissa asked about the parking. So it's one parking place per 1,000 square feet, but over 1,000 square feet, it's per bedroom. So if a 3-bedroom were over 1,000 square feet, it would require 3 parking places. Is that correct?
For mixed use projects, it's 1 per 1,000 square feet is so 1 space.
So if it's over 1,000 square feet, if a
You need
unit,
2 spaces.
right? So it's not necessarily per unit like you were thinking.
There's also a inherent benefit in parking for mixed-use development in that people generally need the parking space for their residents in the evening and generally need their parking space for the commercial enterprises during the day. And so there's some inherent benefit to sharing of uses beyond the internal trip cap.
You mean when the commercial's closed?
Yeah, exactly.
Are there any other questions?
Hey, I do have a question about Building 7. Can you explain that one more time, what exactly
Sure.
Building 7 is?
Mr. Hardison, would you be kind enough to pull the site plan up and talk about that? It's really an extension of the live-work spaces. It includes garage space below for the benefit of those live-work spaces. And then above it, there are what we call carriage houses. There's 2, I believe it's 2, is that right, Josh? Two residential units above that parking. And so this is located here, immediately adjacent to the live-work building. So it's a relatively small structure, and it looks strange on the chart because of that. But it's a separated facility for the sake of establishing garage parking for those live-work units. And then we captured some of the opportunity for residential units above.
And there is not going to be ingress, egress with wings at all? Wings is going to be, which I'm fine with, by the way.
The answer to that question is yes. Do you want to know why? That we can offer some insight on that if you're inclined to hear it.
That's not necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
Yes.
Okay, Julian.
So where it shows square footage, it shows the layout of building 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then it lays out the building heights and the commercial square footage. You have 4,500 for a leasing office, which is considered retail there. You also have a fitness club, which is 4,000 square foot for the fitness club. And then the clubhouse, which is 4,000 square feet. So that's roughly, 16,000 square feet of what would be retail technically designed for the residents within. So that's, as somebody looking in, trying to find something shicey, that looks like a loophole of saying, hey, we can cut off 16,000 square foot by tying our amenities into that. Correct?
But
We work
even if you back that out, they still have enough, correct?
No.
We do, if you consider the additional outdoor space available as a commercial use. But let me answer the question as well, if I could. We work within the definitions of your code, and so that didn't arise out of us dreaming up an idea and putting it on paper and handing it to you. That concept that you describe arose out of significant discussions with staff on the front end before we even submitted our original plan. The making the fitness center and pool available to citizens on a membership basis is an idea that derived directly out of comments we received from the community. And that does change the nature of that use from a recreational amenity solely for the residents to a commercial recreational amenity available to others. Even if you were to subtract those numbers, if you take into account the outdoor space available for restaurant use, which is real, very real commercial active use, we're still well above the threshold the code requires. There's no gamesmanship attempt to reduce commercial use. The effort all along has been, let's find the right balance between the right kind of commercial use with the residential use as well.
So I'm going to switch back over now to parking.
Okay.
I understand our code says 1 per 1,000 square foot. No matter, from a standpoint as a resident, we know that you're probably going to have at least 2 people per household. Each person's going to have a vehicle. You're looking at the exact same number of parking spaces, pretty much would equal for those housing residents, correct?
I'm gonna offer a practical response, and I'm also gonna invite our land planner to come and speak to you about the technical response. From a practical standpoint, please remember that this is a development where we are depending on leasing constantly. And so if we create a development that has a parking problem, that's immediately our problem. this has to be attractive and desirable to future tenants in order for it to work. And so the philosophy behind establishing the parking is not only to satisfy the requirements of the code, but also to make it financially and development viable. Let me invite Josh Mahaley to speak to you, though, about exactly where the requirement comes from and how we got to the number that we did.
Yeah, I'll just echo again what Sam just said. We spent a whole lot of time, and I've generated a lot of Excel spreadsheets and counted a lot of parking spaces and a lot of multifamily projects across the county, and we believe in our parking ratios here. Our financial success and the viability of the project, Sam pointed out, is 100% tied to that. It'd be our worst nightmare to have a project that doesn't park, because that is a problem. You cannot unring that bell once it's rung. So we spent a whole lot of time looking at that, and we feel confident that it's adequately parked.
Okay. Any more questions?
Not at the moment.
Hang on a second, Don. Ms. Attorney, can the public still speak?
You have not closed the public hearing, so
Okay.
you can.
Can you come on back up, Don?
One question that I had, and we ran out of time, is this project being financed by private investors or by pre-sales and financed that way? And the reason I have that question, I remember a project, I don't know how many of you were living here at the time, but at one time in a previous administration, there was a project called, I believe it was called Arcadius, and it was going to be like 7 tall buildings like what these gentlemen were talking about at the marina, and the whole council and the mayor were all in favor for it. And a lot of people were thinking, you know, it just doesn't go with the flow of the town. I'm not talking about you guys, but what happened was, not long before they got ready to start that, they had a recession, and there was no money for the project. And I'm just wondering if they had got approved and they got started, would end up with half buildings, you know, and nothing going on. So that's the question I had about that.
I'm getting the look that we don't get into financing, but you're more than welcome to answer that question. I would say it's just like with any business, you know, if somebody goes under tomorrow, will they be able to continue to finance their business? But that's up to you, however you want to address that.
It's pretty intuitive. You can get that look from your attorney.
She gives it to me a lot, so, and I follow her.
We've
directly.
that look. I'm happy to answer the question. So it is private financed by us. We have equity partners. We have about 15 projects, about $200 million under construction as we speak. We have some very high net worth local and regional families that we utilize as our equity partners. They follow us around project after project. We also use bank financing. So we'll put about 30% equity into this deal, which is about $15 million.
These are apartments.
These are apartments, so there's no way to pre-sales. Yeah, so we don't do any condos, never have in the last 20 years, and I'm guessing I'm not going to do any in the next 20 years. It's just not our style, so these are all long-term rentals.
All right, and did someone else want to come up? Yeah, come on up.
Sarah Eater, 609 Rocky Mountain Avenue, Carolina Beach. I still feel like there's a lot of things to be said about this project. The traffic is going to be one of the major things. The water, us to be able to handle the water systems. I just don't understand why we're going to have to do it tonight. I really feel like we should table this for the new council, and let us all get another good look at what's going on here.
Thank you. Any more comments? And so, just for the public, it's been through TRC, it's been through Public Works, correct? Bruce, did you want to make any comment on that?
It has been reviewed by TRC, been planning board. The text amendment regarding the project's been to planning board and to council. It's, I think this is probably the second or third time council's heard something on this project. So it's been.
Okay. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, if not, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, gentlemen, discussion?
So I'll start out. we've had a couple citizens that talked about tabling it, and I truly appreciate your opinion. But on the other side of the coin, we have 3 council people that are leaving with 26 years of experience, and I value their input, short and simple. I think proximity, for me, it's a couple things. I think the communication piece, what they've gone through from day one, so they got turned down 6-0 by P&Z. A lot of people could have just walked away, right? But their communication piece, how many meetings they've had numerous public meetings. I've been to 3 of them myself. And in one of them, it was a coffee shop. It was myself, Fred Grady, and this gentleman. And we talked for hours. And I appreciate the communication piece. They have a reputation right now of doing good work. Right? Take a look at Publix. Take a look at the landscaping at Publix. They didn't have to do all that, but they did. And I think they've gone above and beyond in a couple categories, which should grant them this project. You know, they've exceeded the commercial space. I know there's some argument maybe down there, but they've more than conceded it. The connectivity piece is solid. The keeping the live oaks and actually moving live oaks to a central part of their project is pretty impressive. They're sticking with the 50-foot height, 10-foot landscape. And needless to say, the tax revenue that this complex is going to give our town is going to be one of the highest tax revenue generators that we're going to have. So I do support this project. That's all I have.
Any more discussion or comments?
Well, I would just echo some of what Jay said there. Some of the things that stuck out to me is we've been trying for a long time to get sidewalks on Lake Park Boulevard on the other side. And I think it's compelling that these guys went from a 5-foot to an 8-foot sidewalk, because we've had discussions throughout town where we only have a 4-foot wide sidewalk and you can't walk on it. And so to have an 8-foot, even though it's a gap section, they're putting it in front of their property. I do think their willingness to put up potentially as much as $300,000 to help us get a signal at Winter Avenue and look at using any excess monies to do sidewalk improvements in that intersection, I think is a big benefit to the community. I think working with their neighbor Jersey Mike's and doing away with that curb cut on Lake Park, they didn't have to do that. Okay, so instead of having 2 curb cuts, which we have problems up and down Lake Park where we have 4 or 5 businesses in a row and they have 4 or 5 driveways, by incorporating this one into their land plan and working with the public's ownership, one of the biggest problems we had with Harris Teeter, and the reason they put so much traffic on Lake Park, is they didn't have access to that traffic light. And I hear the neighbors, I understand that, traffic's gonna spread out, I get that, but a lot of people are gonna wanna go to that traffic light and not fight the right out coming out of the property. They're gonna go to the traffic light and wait for it to get a right out at a signal. I think you gotta give both our residents and future residents the benefit of the doubt on how they're gonna wanna navigate. It doesn't take long to realize it's hard to turn left on Lake Park in the summer. It doesn't take you very long to figure that out. So I was impressed with that, and as someone who's in some of that business, taking their lot coverage down to 17% on the buildings, that's pretty substantial. They could have looked at a lot bigger footprints. They could have put parking underneath it and had just a lot more bulk and scale than what they've done. Having 7 buildings, some of them relatively small, just being garages with 2 houses, 2 units above it. You know, I thought there was some give and take. They contacted 85 neighbors. I can tell you in 10 years up here, we've had a lot of land plans. Not that many applicants have mailed out to 85 neighbors, informing them what's going on, and held 25 neighborhood meetings. So we've had a lot of input. I would like to encourage staff to figure out a way to participate and get the sidewalk on Winter Avenue. I showed Jay the GIS snapshot. We have a lift station over there. There's room between the edge of the lift station. I'm sure Wes can figure out how to clear a spot to get a sidewalk next to that lift station. and we could probably clear out some of the other illegal parking that's going there and make some connectivity that the town has looked for a long time. That's gonna give us the pedestrian connectivity, that's gonna give us the bicycle connectivity. So I applaud that, and I didn't attend all those public meetings because I wanted not to have to be there and have it a council focus, and wanted the neighbors to have a chance to meet with these guys. And we have pages of people that attended those meetings. So that's all. That's my soapbox for this one.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple things. Pretty much I did attend a lot of the citizen meetings, and I appreciate you guys doing that. I'd really never seen that go as well, and so much thoughtful comments from the residents, you know, with ideas that you guys picked up, and I appreciate that. So most of my issues that came out of those, or I think all of them, you guys have accommodated in your conditions. The big one for me, obviously, was, I mentioned earlier, was short-term rentals. I think you guys have removed that barrier. The only other comment's really not germane to this permit, but I do think the residents, Bruce, I've lived on Lewis Drive, and 7th Street I think has the same problem. So I do think you're going to see traffic move, and you're going to have to work with the chief on an enforcement plan, because it's not these guys' fault. It's just anytime you grow, traffic's going to find a way around. So I would encourage you to be proactive on that. And I apologize for sneaking that one in here, but it was what was on my mind. That's all I have.
The design I like. I think it's dope. I said that last time at the thing in regards to the land use plan. What tears me the most is that from a council standpoint, I have to look at the town as a whole, not now, but in the after the 2024. Stoplight, I think it's amazing if we get it. So if we don't get it, then there are going to be traffic issues, because we have a CUP that's being built in that street that's going to have an extra 200 some things. I know that from a town standpoint, it's not your problem, but from a town standpoint, where St. Joseph ends, there's nothing there. It's a shitstorm. You have to pray to God that you can make a left-hand turn or a right-hand turn at that moment. Coming out of that neighborhood that you're proposing now, it's the same concept. You cannot make a left. So if you were a resident, you'd go the back way in either St. Joseph's or cut through where the last resort is. That harmony piece is the piece it's going to affect the community long term. I was 50-50 last time I told you guys. I'm dead honest. I think it's an amazing design. I think it's great. My thing is that we're waiting on the traffic study. So not getting that from the WMPO, that may be an issue. We were given their traffic study 4 years ago, and it was night and day, if anybody remembers that, on why we should not have things on that location there. I understand that they were approved for Harris Teeter and more footprint for the traffic. I do understand that, but still, that left-hand turn is an issue. I'm torn. I really am. I'm right there on the fence. I think it's an amazing thing. Having long-term rentals, it might be great for our school. We may have more kids. There's going to be more volunteers. Yes, the tax. I'm not a money guy, so I don't care about that. It's the other things in regards to who we have to address. It won't be me, it'll be them, but at this moment, those are my biggest concerns. I know you've addressed them, but 5 years, we're going to be a different community in 5 years. We have a handful of lots that are being turned into duplexes. That traffic is something that I know is going to be an issue. Beyond that, I think it's an amazing idea. I'm a swing vote. I think you guys are awesome. Everything you've done so far proves that you guys know what you're doing. It's just that the asterisk, which is Carolina Beach, and the traffic that we get, that's the only asterisk to it. And I'm just being honest. Thanks.
So I hear your concerns. I live on St. Joseph Street, and my business is on Lake Park, so I'm right there with you, and I have the same concerns. But I will tell you that I think the applicant has gone through the process. They have jumped through every hoop that we've asked them to. I think we all know that parking will be an issue, but if you tried to rent anything long-term this summer, there was nothing available for a school teacher or a police officer or and employees that you might have. You just can't find long-term rentals, and I think that's what we were looking for. As far as the comments that it should be tabled, I think that whether you're up for election or whether you are a current sitting elected official, you have a duty to vote when something comes before you. We don't want to kick the can down the road when it's our obligation to vote. So I think that if council pleases, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion for approval and find that whereas in accordance with the provisions of NCGS, the council does hereby find and determine the adoption of the conditional use district to allow for a mixed-use commercial residential located at 902, 910, 1000, and 1010 North Lake Park Boulevard is consistent with the goals and objectives of the adopted land use plan, and other long-range plans and the potential impacts on the surrounding area are mitigated by the approved conditions.
Okay, motion on the floor. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Motion passes 4-1. Thank you guys for investing in Carolina Beach, and we know you'll do a great project. Okay, we'll move into our next public hearing. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing to hear the text amendment considering Chapter 40, Article 6, Section 40-145, Section 40-176, Section 40-179 to update the ordinance to provide protection for trees on single-family and two-family lots. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, good evening, Mayor, Council. This is on, thank you. So I will be discussing the text amendment for tree protection. Currently, single-family and two-family dwellings are excluded from the definition of buffer yards. So with this text amendment, we would strike that out.
Oh, yeah, back up.
Oh,
Back up one, we're gonna.
is it off? How about now? Better? Okay, sorry. Where do you want me to back up to? I heard back up.
Right there, I'm just trying to understand why we would start the whole presentation with a new definition of a buffer yard. Keep going. I just wanted to read it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I know that's hard to believe, but sometimes I do read what you guys.
No, that's fine, that's fine. I don't mind slowing down. So for any new construction or expansion, that buffer yard should be provided. So that's gonna be, anything over 50% or more. So it's pretty much just gonna be new construction. And, we now have a type F landscape buffer, for every 25 linear feet of frontage. The lot should contain a minimum of 1 tree. They should be a minimum of 6 feet tall and 2 inches in caliper. If there are trees on the site, they could get credit for those trees, but we just want to see 2 trees.
So, a type F, are we talking about all properties, or are we dealing on commercial, or are we dealing residential,
So
or is this everything?
type F is for single family and 2-family homes.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I just wanna make sure we understand. So you're saying for every 25 feet, you're gonna require front yard trees?
Mhm.
Okay, so, which most of our lots are 50.
Right.
So that would be. 2 trees.
Yes.
That's new math. I did that with. Okay.
Yes.
Steve, you're on a roll, man. You're good.
I know, I am.
Math, you read, what's next?
It's amazing. 2 trees, that's new maths.
So, this is pretty much just what we would be looking for at the end of when they come in for their CO. So 50 foot, we'd want to see 2 trees on the lot. They could be existing, they could be new, they would just have to be 6 feet in height and 2 inches in caliper.
Do we go back to giving them a choice of what types of trees, or are we requiring a type of tree?
So we're working with the beautification committee to update that list of the native trees.
Heritage. I understand. So what are we requiring in this ordinance for the types of trees?
We would just require that it be a native tree. We do have a list that we recommend, but it's
Do we have alien trees, Ed? When you say a native tree, a native to what?
indigenous tree, one that's grows in the area. So we do have a list. It's not part of the code.
Is that the list that was provided to us 2 months ago that showed that some of them have a 30 to 50 foot canopy?
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm all for it, but we need to be fairly clear on what we're asking people to do. You're saying plant 2 trees. Is there a list of type of trees they have to plant? Your answer is yes, native trees. Okay. But do we, I mean, Native trees is a broad,
If it's an indigenous tree and not an invasive species, then yes, it's okay. If it's not on the list, then we would want to look at it.
we don't want bamboo and we don't want kudzu. Is there another type of invasive species that we're, I mean, I'm not joking here, I'm just trying to
I
understand.
think what Steve is getting to is there's an actual list that says,
I mean, the 2-inch
Right.
caliper, I get that, and 6 feet in height,
Yeah.
okay, or existing trees, and that's fine. You're saying they could put 2 trees anywhere on the lot, it doesn't have to be in the front,
That's right.
Right.
okay? But type F is for a single family or a duplex. We have different requirements for multifamily and commercial, okay?
Yes.
But your first slide has a definition of a buffer, a yard buffer, right? That's why I asked.
Right, so type F would be that buffer yard for single family and 2-family homes. So that's why we had to strike.
We historically have called that a side setback. Now we're calling it a buffer yard?
It's two separate things. So the buffer yard is the landscaping area.
So if you,
Clear on that?
I,
I mean, we have a side setback of 7.5 feet, but we're gonna call a buffer yard, I mean,
so you have for a 3 to 5 units, you have in multifamily, you have like a type A buffer, which around the perimeter you'd have to have a 5-foot buffer. And then as you get higher and higher in commercial resident or commercial or residential unit density, you might go to a type B, which is a 10-foot buffer, and we have a type E for our downtown, which is planters in the sidewalks for your central business district. Type F would be all the buffer is every 25 linear feet, you need 1 tree. So that's all that means. I don't want to. I don't want to overcomplicate it.
on the schematic you gave us, it said the buffer is 0 as far as
Yep.
the size.
Yep, the size is 0. It's not overcomplicated. Every 25 feet, you need 1 tree.
Yeah, I guess I'm just hung up on semantics, why you would call it a buffer yard.
That was in the existing code, right?
That's just adding on to the
Right, it was.
Single family, it's been a setback, it's fine, I'm just saying,
setbacks and buffers are different. But
right. But we haven't had a single family buffer yard before.
that's right. That's right. This is new.
For a duplex or a single family, your house doesn't have a buffer yard. Everyone coming up from now on is gonna have a buffer yard. I mean, why don't you just say we require two trees on a 50-foot lot for every 25 feet? We just confuse it when you add language like buffer yards. It's just observation. Plus, this is my last real meeting, I get to roll my eyes and huffy puffy and,
Well, we haven't voted on it, so we can make any changes you want.
I don't wanna, I'm just,
I mean, I hear what you're saying, Steve. Go ahead.
cause now we're talking about buffer yard landscaping.
I think it's just a motion.
We can strike that if you don't like it.
It's just the terminology.
Back up.
it's not just a terminology.
Back
going
up.
forward
Back
for new.
up, you're going way too fast. These people can't read that fast. I took Evelyn Wood and I can't read that fast.
Okay.
So we're talking about single family and duplexes, but we delete single family and duplexes on this slide.
Out of the thing.
I don't, whatever, right?
Where are we at?
So
Oh,
you're-
I
got
can answer
lost.
any questions you have.
so this is just a
Okay.
recap of the ordinance.
Council, do you have questions? I guess,
Go ahead.
So basically, in simple terms, every 25 feet, we're requiring 1 tree, 6 foot tall, 2-inch in diameter. 50-foot property, 2 trees. If you have trees in the backyard already, you don't have to do it. We're just trying to put a pin in it so we can put some more meat into a tree ordinance. It's simple. This one is extremely simple, the tree ordinance.
Plan or replace.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
I'm gonna hold my comment until they finish.
okay.
7 pages?
Any more questions for staff?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Would anyone from the public like to come and speak on this issue? Come on up. Paul, I see you.
Thank you. My name is Paul Levy, 1606 Mackerel Lane. We live in a duplex, which was built on a 25-foot by 2 lot. I would like to suggest that duplexes be exempted entirely from any requirement for tree planting. I personally do not want, if I were coming in here, I would not want to be told as an incoming resident, here's and now I'm going to go where you were, Joe Dan. I love trees. I don't want a live oak taking over my entire driveway or a magnolia taking over my entire driveway. Our lot was clear cut because nothing could have survived and nothing can survive a duplex being built on a 50 by 100 foot lot. I spent my own money to put in what I want, and honestly, I think on these very small lots, that's the way we ought to leave it. I wouldn't want a tree I put in or I was told to put in that then grows over onto my neighbor's little tiny 16 by 25 foot backyard, and then the limb comes down and then there's a fight among neighbors. That's what bothers me about an ordinance that covers these very small duplex lots. So I would encourage you to strike duplex entirely from this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Would anyone else like to speak from the public? Okay. Go ahead, come on up.
I'm Cindy Dunn. I'm chairman of the beautification committee. We have worked with Jay on this ordinance. We've had visitors. We've had our planning and zoning people there, and we've had other visitors come in from the Island Wildlife Group, and the lady that's in charge of the Cape Fear Alliance of Trees has come and talked with us. We were challenged by you guys to come up with maybe some suggestions to make this to provide to you to get this ordinance in some format in our code so that we could, and I know that the attorney has said we fall under the law that's in Raleigh now, that we're exempt from managing trees on our property, but there is some question as to whether we really do or don't, and we wanted to try to come up with something that we, as we talked about, pen on paper, to have something in our books in case we have to stand up for our rights on our trees. I appreciate what Paul said. He and I worked together on the operations committee. One of the things that was challenged us was we had been presented after the original text amendment came to you guys, and that kind of got thrown out. Ed presented us with a staff option to review, to go over for the workshop. And we did. We went over very carefully. And of course, one of the items in your buffer yard landscaping, which is where this comes from, Councilman Shuttleworth, is they've included, it says excluding single and two-family homes. Evidently, they were mentioned in the buffer yard landscaping as an exclusion in the prior ordinance. Also, it says in here, however, no buffer yard improvement shall be required for those portions of existing lot frontage used for driveways constructed in accordance with town regulations. So your 25 linear feet can be reduced because of those driveways.
Yep.
I don't think we talked about that.
Wait, run that by me. So you're saying if we have a 50-foot wide lot and I have a 15-foot wide driveway, I really only have a 35-foot area?
No, that's not how it works.
Right.
You explain what this, I read you all word for word for what was presented us. That's what.
I get you.
So if you have a 50-foot lot, you have a 50-foot lot. We're not looking at the improvements. 50-foot lot, that's 2 trees. Every 25 feet, you're not looking at any of the improvements on the lot.
When it says, however, no buffer yard improvement shall be required for those portions of existing lot frontage used for driveways constructed in the town regulations, how do you read that? Does that mean I don't have to plant a tree in my driveway, but it still counts in my 50 feet? 'Cause
That's
the way it reads.
if you have, like the development we saw earlier, their driveway cuts, obviously those are exempt from a type A, B buffer. Those are the types of things you don't have to have that are go along the entire perimeter of the lot.
I'm with you.
When you redline and say excluding single-family and two-family homes, and the next sentence says, however, no improvement shall be required for those portions. I'm all for the 2 trees, don't get me wrong. I've been on board for this for a long time. We've been talking about it. I voiced my concerns about the canopy trees that we talked about here, Mr. Levy did a minute ago. If you guys have come up with a list, that's fine. I would just, not to take away from Ms. Dunn's time.
Cindy, yeah. We do have a list. In fact, in his defense, we just got a revised list to him today that one of our landscapers was working on, and we've also are trying to bring in the types of plants that will be can stand the salt air. And the arborist over at the County Arboretum has a good list for us. We did talk about understory or shrub when we knocked that out. We talked about the minimum, I believe is how it's written in here, a minimum of 2 inches, minimum of 6 feet, which means they can go up if they want to. One of our concerns was that we did want in there if a contractor or a builder or a developer had left, leaves a tree that counts towards their requirement. It should count toward their requirement, and then they wouldn't have to replace but maybe 1 tree, or if they leave 2 trees, they don't have to replace those trees. If they're particularly trees that would be, I guess, off our list.
Okay.
Or trees that are existing on there now, which would mainly be native trees, either cedars or pin oaks or pines or, something like that.
Okay.
Anyway, we did go over this, and I know in some of the discussion in the actual ordinance, part of the wording in the ordinance was the saving of the heritage trees. Heritage trees have kind of gotten a little bit of a disparity on definition. Heritage trees are those trees that are important because of their great size, notable longevity, unusual form, location at the extreme of their natural growing range, or association with history. It's not necessarily a specific tree. So our committee is very much on having the trees saved. We liked the 1 tree per 25 feet. We were a little confused, I think, on that statement on the driveways. I'll have to say that. Other than that, you asked us to do a job, and that's what we did.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Cindy, and we
Thank you.
appreciate the committee's work on this. Anybody else from the public? Okay. Yes, ma'am. We'll give you extra time to get up here.
She's moving a lot faster now than she was a week ago.
Hi, Melanie Boswell, 107 Allen Palms Drive. I think everybody knows that I've been fighting for a tree ordinance for many years now. And this is a compromise. It's not as much as I wanted in there, but it's something. It's something to get us on, to go ahead and get us in there so that we are grandfathered if something does go through. The only thing I would ask is that we do put the wording in there instead of just planting 2 trees, that we do specify 2 native trees, because otherwise we're going to have just 2 little palm trees or whatever planted, and that's not the purpose of what this ordinance was for. So I do think we should put that wording in the ordinance. And that's
Native
all.
trees,
Yes,
indigenous.
yes.
So how do you feel about the maintenance paragraph that reads, all planted and retained living material required to meet this provision of the article shall be maintained by the owner of the property on which the material is located, excluding type F buffer yards?
I
is what
don't
we're
get the
talking about.
buffer yard part about the,
That's what
I'm
She's
confused
saying
on
we
the
want trees
driveway.
and, we're gonna plant them, and in here it talks about maintenance, and it says.
Except for residential.
Except for residential, you don't have
Which
to
is what
maintain
we're
that
addressing.
buffer yard in residential. So you're gonna tell me to go plant trees, but I don't have to maintain them?
After CO, that's it.
I do feel like that should be where if it's taken down, that it should be replanted. Otherwise,
you-
we're gonna have somebody go and get the smallest tree, you're gonna plant the 2 trees, and then what are they gonna do as soon as they get their CO? They're gonna take the tree up and put
Chop
the
it
palm
out.
tree, whatever, and then there again.
Why would somebody do that?
I mean, not everybody, but if
But they could do it.
they could.
It's their property. If
And
they want
that goes
to cut
back
the tree
to-
down, they can cut the tree down.
But that's
Or they
where
can
I
speed
think-
or break the law any way they want to.
But I think that we are starting to educate the public on the importance.
You're saying you guys would support an ordinance that says you're required to plant 2 trees on 50 feet. But after you move in, if you wanna cut them down, we don't care.
That's not what, well, nobody said that, but she's saying that could possibly happen.
It could possibly happen.
Well, it certainly could if you leave the language in here that says all planted, retained, living materials, et cetera, shall be maintained by the owner of the property in which the material is located, excluding
Excluding.
buffers. So you could do that everywhere, but on the house that you built, you don't have to worry about
Well,
keeping trees.
the problem.
Why would we do that?
Okay, hang on. Let's finish with our public comment, and then we'll go to discussion. Thank you, Melanie. I appreciate it. Any more public comment?
Come on up, Paul. Welcome back.
I'm not just saying this to be a pain in the neck. Why would a homeowner under this ordinance want to remove one of these trees? And I again go back to the duplex. You have a backyard, and I'll use mine because I've measured it, and it's the same right behind us where they just put up another duplex. You have about 16 feet by 25 feet. If you wanted to put in a hot tub or one of those little lap pool things or a whole bunch of other things, in my case, I actually planted a peach tree, which nobody said would grow here, except it grows and produces. Is that native? I don't know. It grows in other parts of coastal Carolinas. But it probably wouldn't be allowed under this ordinance.
Why do you think it would not be? Why would it not be?
Well, it's not what I would define as an indigenous tree of the type that's been discussed.
There's peach trees all down through Dow Park.
Yeah.
Dow Road.
And through the back zones over there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I've learned something, but so my point being,
I'd cut mine.
to me, that on a little tiny lot ought to be the homeowner's prerogative.
Well, and Paul, I believe that's what we're saying. Just plant 2 trees. It could be 2 inches and 6 feet tall. You can pick the type. That was what's getting to my point. And that's when Ed said they have to be indigenous, and I'm saying give us a list. I think we all agreed last time, requiring someone to plant canopy trees was problematic.
Yeah,
If someone wants to plant a canopy tree, that's on them. But requiring that, I think is
I agree with that statement, and
that's
I
what we're saying.
apologize if that was already discussed. I wanted to make sure that, again, I've seen this for the first time, that in respect to these very small lots, that there's an understanding of those issues. That's
Do you have a tree in the front?
my only point. No, and I didn't want one.
Just curious.
No, I really did not want one.
Okay.
We lived in a property which had 1,000,001 giant oak trees. We were tired of that, quite honestly.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Anybody else from the public?
The Dredge show up at the last minute. I don't know what's going on with that.
Anybody else from the public? We are in a public hearing.
Latecomers want to speak up?
All right. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we can have discussion.
So I think Melanie was right. I mean, I wish we could have done more on the tree ordinance. We sat there for 2.5 hours hacking this out, and we came up with 1 tree per 25 feet.
But
6 foot. I mean, it is simple. But getting back to Paul's point or whatever, if the homeowner wants to take those trees down after the CO, they can. We can't enforce that. But what we want is the trees to be planted, hoping that they don't want to take them down. I mean, it's
I thought we threw an idea out there that if they chose not to, that they could also, we could take that tree and plant it on our property somewhere, and I don't see that anywhere in here. That's something that we addressed.
no, because it's not in there.
Why would we not? That's one of the huge factors that we spoke about the last meeting on tabling. It's like, why would we not give them that option?
Because I think that would be impossible to manage, personally. We talked about it. I mean, who's going to manage that?
We don't have a lot of space in town.
Well,
If I opt to pay the town for.
You have a land on the north end.
you could give
Couple
the
acres
town
up there.
money for the 2 trees, though. And you don't have to buy a tree, you give them money, whatever.
I'm okay with the way it's written. I think you guys did a great job. I had a
You
couple.
sure are arguing a lot.
Well, no, I'm not arguing.
Well,
I'm pointing out some inconsistencies in here, Madam.
I agree with you.
If
It's
you say you
extremely
plant a tree-
confusing to be so simple.
I think you should take out the part that says if you plant it, you have to maintain it, excluding the type F buffer. I don't know why you would exclude something that we're trying to get people to do. You can have enforcement. The other issue I had is when on page 55D, it talks about planting and replacement. All buffer yards shall be landscaped with a combination of live vegetation, ground cover, grass, trees, and/or shrubs. Vegetation to be planted pursuant to this section shall be indigenous or compatible with the town area and approved by the zoning administrator. Anytime you have to get the zoning administrator to approve anything, it puts a deadlock in it. It puts more work on staff. It should be pretty clear cut. And I don't know how you have planting. All buffer yards shall be landscaped with a combination, but the buffer yard for a type F is 0. There's just some inconsistencies in there. That's all I'm saying. I mean, it just doesn't read well. I applaud the idea of 2 trees. I can live with, support 2 trees per 50 feet front or back and let them pick what kind they want. It just seems like there's a little bit of confusion. My experience has been every time we have confusing ordinances, we spend a lot of time in Jeremy's office trying to convince him that's not what it says.
Okay, with that said, what do the rest of you think? Do we need to look at this again? Do you want to vote on it, or do you want to have Ed sharpen his pencil?
Me personally, if we vote on it, I would love to slide the. I've always been about that. If someone chooses not to plant a tree, give one to the town. I don't think it's impossible. I think that we should always, instead of saying it's possible, let's try it first. Long term, we have plants in our community that are helping our native species as well as us during rainstorms.
I think that defeats the purpose of the ordinance completely.
We originally, one of the reasons we tabled this was not only for protection, but for also
Is this what I'm
replacement
in
if it's
for?
an issue.
Mayor-elect? What do you
You
want to
know,
weigh in?
My opinion, I think Melanie nailed it. We've been round and round and round. This is a compromise. We could probably put a barometer on everybody in here, and so half of us go that way and half of us go that way. But it is a compromise. I don't find it confusing to understand. When I read it, and I'd never seen this before, it's 2 trees and it's indigenous trees. So basically anything that grows here natively or indigenous, whatever you want to define that, is allowed. I do like the excluding type F on the maintenance item because I struggle to put on the 42nd homeowner that owns that a requirement that they have to make think 40 years out, because if you put it in here, you're saying you have to take care of these trees forever, right? I mean, that's what it would
In
say.
4 years it starts to die, like, damn, I can't cut that down. It's going to have to die naturally.
Right. I think that's onerous on the future owners. So I actually I think it's a good compromise. I think Melanie hit it. I think we could do better, but we've been round and round on this, and I think this is a good start. That's my 2 cents.
So do we need to change it before we make a motion, or can we
You
just?
can do either.
You can do it all as of right now.
All right, let's do this. I make a motion that we're in accordance with the provisions of NCGC. The commission does hereby find and determine that the adoption of the following ordinance amendment to Chapter 40, Article 6, Section 40-175, Section 40-176, Section 40-179 to update the ordinance to provide protections of trees on single-family and two-family lots is consistent with the goals, objectives of the adopted land use plan and other long-range plans.
Okay, motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion passes.
Beautiful.
I will, and it is a good start, and for the public, this reminds me a lot of, and Steve, you'll remember this, the sign ordinance that we changed about 12 times. So I'm sure that we'll see this evolve as well.
Well, can I have one thing? Just kudos to you guys that have worked and worked and worked on this. This has been
4 years in the making.
It has been 4 years in the making, and I don't think anybody's going to walk away thinking this was the absolute best they could have got, but it's a good start. So thank you.
Okay, and we'll move in now to the update on the Lake Dredge project.
Really quick, we have 2 council member elects in the back. Just want to say hello, guys. Welcome. Hoffer, Benson.
Oh, excuse me for that, guys. I do see you back there. Councilman-elect Hoffer and Councilman past Mayor, I don't know how we're going to address you now, Joe Benson. Thank you, guys, for being here and listening up. So, all right, Lake Dredge update.
Thank you, Mayor, and unfortunately I don't have very good news report. As you know, I've sent you guys the bids we got in on the Lake Dredge you have in front of you, and the lowest bid was $6.4 million. It's not where we were hoping for, so just want to update you on that. We can go back and discuss with the contractor. We had a conversation with him yesterday, but we can go back and see if there's any way to reduce. It was estimated on the cubic yards, if we can reduce the cubic yards. But we're open to suggestions from council, and we will work with the contractor. And
So why is it, do you think the bids were so much higher?
the contractor told me it was transportation costs, having to leave the island. He said he could do it a lot cheaper if he had a location on the island. He said that's what he told me.
But the bid, I mean, the specs were changed from what they were in the past.
Well, original specs in 2016 were a book this big. The RFP for this one was a 2-page RFP, so we reduced the requirements on this just to.
So I was very disappointed in that number, and I called Mr. Bruce after I talked to one of the contractors, and they said it was the most complicated bid package they'd ever seen. And when I asked Mr. Oakley to send it to me, it is a 2-page bid requirement. The format that we laid out was 2 pages. However, it said it must adhere to all the attached permits, and if you read the core permit is what caused the problem. The core permit says it has to be dry solution, and they can't leave a mess. And so the contractors took that to mean that they had to put all this material. My understanding was he had $460,000 in plastic bags to put all the material in those silt socks, which isn't a requirement of the bid. So I would encourage us to look at that. I don't believe that when you read that core permit, that's what it requires. It says you're supposed to haul it in a dry material. It doesn't require it to be watertight. It is going to be a messy process. There was a lot of stuff in that bid, from my understanding, that had nothing to do with hauling. And $128 a yard to move stuff off the island is ludicrous. So there's got to be something else in that bid, because we've had other valid, qualified people tell us how much it would cost to carry material. So we need to sit down. I'm wondering who they communicated with at the town to review that bid, because the 2 pages are exactly as we asked, Bruce, and I appreciate that. It basically said, hey, we think we got about 50,000 cubic yards. You tell us how to get it out of here. You got to do it between this date and this date, and you got to have some insurance. How you do it, where you put it, we don't care. But every one of them came in with these extreme conditions that they placed on themselves by reading the core permit. And I don't think that's actually what the core permit is telling them to do. They just don't want you to dig up a bunch of stuff and let it fall back into the lake or into the waterway. If you're driving down Lake Park, it ain't going in the waterway. So I would just encourage you to get back with these guys, because $128 a yard to move a piece of dirt is just way high.
So I think we need to take a good hard look at the wording of the bids and the proposal, and then I think we need to have a discussion as council of, do we still want to do 50,000 cubic yards? Do we want to do 30,000 instead of 50? And we still need to have another discussion with the colonel to see if Sunny Point can still work. We cannot give up on this colonel right now. We need to have a conversation with them, and I know it's got to go through the Pentagon and all that, but this has been going on forever, and we have to resolve it. So I sat down in a presentation today from Greg Bell, the gentleman that came in, and after the presentation, I think we need to start thinking out of the box, because his presentation is, he basically said, how come you guys don't do it yourself? You know, have the town do it, in the silt socks that you were talking about, fold them over, and instead of going 6 feet down, we go 3 feet down, we go 2 feet up, which would equate to 5 feet. It's just a thought. I have no idea what the cost is, but it could be an interesting discussion. But we need to do something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to what,
I think, in talking to Bruce, he was gonna meet with one of the bidders and ask them where they thought some things could happen, and I would ask him to sit down and review that core permit, and maybe talk to some of the wetlands guys that help us get those permits and review the conditions, because that's what jumped out at me when I read it. There was no requirement to put them in all those silt socks. The other thing is, we've heard different numbers. It could be 50,000, I agree with you, Jay. It could be a lot less. I mean, we don't, we need to do something on the east end. When you're standing out there and you watch the bird standing in the middle of the lake, 2 inches deep, it's, you gotta do something.
Okay.
I was just gonna add to that, Bruce, I think we've all said this multiple times, is, I don't even know how to say this. You understand we need this done, and I do think we need all options on the table, whatever, but we need to be, if we need to be more creative or, whatever it takes.
Right.
Talk to some different people, be open-minded, whatever the proper words are, I think we gotta find a way to get it done.
First step, I'll bring in the contractor, ask him to come in and maybe invite a couple of you there, and we can sit down with him and
We just need to have a vibrant conversation during the next workshop. I mean, vibrant.
Oh, we're talking parking in the next one, let's don't.
Oh.
so turn it-
Not that vibrant.
Just block off your day.
Okay, American Rescue Funds Plan?
As you know, we were awarded some American Rescue Fund money this year out of the, from the federal government on the response to COVID. We've got numerous projects going right now. One of the things you can spend the money on is premium pay for employees who were exposed or worked, they were essential to them, to the operations of the government, who faced increased exposure to COVID. Mainly created for first responders, but has also included anybody who helped support the operation. So a lot of our neighbors are doing this. So I know Wilmington and New Hanover County have had some plans for this, which we compete for employees with that. I know New Hanover County's was, I believe, was more than ours. I don't know exactly how I think they did theirs based on how long you worked for them, and I think Wilmington had a much higher than us. But what this proposes is through American Rescue Funds, $1,500 for first responders and field workers, the ones who are out there every day during this entire time, and then $1,000 for employees who were, it's a tiered system, that were working every day in the office, and then a $500 for the ones who may have worked some from home. The little caveat is we had a lot of people who worked from home at periods of time, but they were here other times. We didn't have anybody exclusively work from home. So for that, there are some strict rules in this, how you can pay. And if it says you work from home, there's limited how much you can give them. So we were going to propose maybe to make it for morale and some equity for, or not equity, but to make it equal for everyone at that $1,000 level, maybe fund 500 of it from general funds. But I'll try to answer any
Great
questions.
morale booster. We've been
So
there
how
a
much
lot.
is all that?
Through the American Rescue Funds, it'd be $121,000 and $121,480, and general fund would be $5,500. Yeah, $5,500.
And how many employees don't qualify?
Well, there's some rules that we had. I don't know exactly the number. We've got a spreadsheet.
What's an ish? 20, 30? We have
I wouldn't say
115
that's,
employees?
yeah, for that, qualify for the American Rescue for the full $1,000. There's probably, I mean, it's, well, we had like, it's hard to guess a number. We have, volunteer firemen who did go on call, so we got them at a tiered rate at like 250. So there, there's probably 20 to 30 employees who didn't get the full $1,000. So, but there's, but the 5,500. So there's basically not many from that we had that actually worked from home at all. I mean, didn't work here full time. There's only a handful that worked remotely.
All but 5,000 is coming out of that fund.
Right.
And Bruce,
I'm for it.
pretty much every surrounding municipality that we know of is doing this, right? This
Yeah.
is something that they've all done for their first responders, mostly.
Right, yes. I know City of Wilmington, New Hanover, I believe Leland and some other ones have done that, and that's the ones we compete with to keep employees, and it was brought to my attention when they started doing it, we heard about it. So,
I'm all for it.
I'm all for it too.
Yeah, those guys, I mean, when it's, if you think back when COVID first came out, nobody knew. There was no vaccine. Nobody knew what the heck was going on. It was a very chaotic time. But for them, they didn't stop. They just kept doing their jobs, and to me, that's worth it. They earned it.
Well, let's make a motion.
Do you need a vote?
So you need a motion on that?
Sure.
So make a motion to approve, what did I say wrong? Joe?
Resolution, I think, right?
Resolution, American Rescue Premium
As
Plan,
presented by Mayor.
Premium Pay.
Okay. So,
As presented by the manager.
I got so many people talking to me, I don't even know what I'm saying now. I think I'm making a motion to approve a resolution as presented by the town manager to allocate American Rescue funds for premium pay for town employees.
Yes.
Is that good?
Okay, motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll move into committee appointments, and we have one opening on our Planning and Zoning Board, and that will be filled with Bill Carew. So congratulations, Bill, and thank you for everyone who applied to that position. We had quite a few really good applicants.
We do.
Non-agenda items.
Want me to go?
Sure, go ahead.
Handful first are just follow-ups. We were introduced to the K-9 Demi and her handler Stevenson last month. How's everything going with that?
I think very well. It was a big hit at the Pets in the Park, and I think it's going really well.
Yeah, Chief reported in police advisory, maybe if Deb wants, but if you want to add anything, but in police advisory, he went over that and said that was going really well. He's even thinking about adding a second. So
Okay.
I don't know if that'll happen or not, but
Second follow-up is any word on possibly the lights for Ace Hardware that we spoke about?
I believe that was part of the traffic study that they were talking about earlier. I think that will be included in that traffic study if there's going to be any changes.
well, this is the Baines coming straight across from me.
Yeah, we're talking straight out of the public, so.
Okay.
All right. The rescue plan capital projects, when do we anticipate to start all those? What's the time frame?
The Florida Avenue, there will actually be they're TV in line. They were cleaning lines today, and I believe they're going to be TV in the lines, taking cameras down the lines on Florida before we start slip lining to make sure what we're doing. That starts tomorrow. So that'll be the first project, and I don't know if Brian or Mark can address anything else, but.
So these are the follow-ups from ideas we spoke about from non-agenda items. One was at town council workshops before COVID kicked off, we had started a program where whoever was on a committee would just give a quick update. I think we need to bring that back. I know the workshop's gonna be in 2 weeks. Things are kind of getting back together. Helps with transparency and also just helps everyone knows what's kind of going on. An idea that I threw out there before was that I believe that in February, March, because it's typically right after the budget retreat kicks off, that we should always invite the chairman of every committee. It's good for them just to kind of face-to-face with council, so that way we understand their visions, their goals, where they plan on going for that full year. I'd love to see that thrown in the mix if possible, February, possibly March. And then maybe again at the end of the season say, hey, here's where we fell short, here are the things that we actually focused on, and between the town and the committee, things were met or weren't met. Somebody spoke about, they believe there's issues with trash or something down at the Spartanburg Avenue parking spot. If we could have someone just take a look and maybe reach out to the residents. It was brought up at the ops committee today. So we're now into November, and during our budget retreat, we've constantly were speaking about the municipal service district. A good portion of the business owners, and I keep saying that we need to start that conversation now, no one has been contacted at all. And in the past 4 months, I know we keep saying, if it's going to go that way, let's get them together. I know they haven't started their committee, but we need to be super proactive so we don't have an issue that we had last time.
Right, I will direct from council and we'll start.
So that's going to be super important because we're 2 months away. And we saw the backlash, we got that from business owners. There's an issue for us. Please address that as soon as possible. I see that going forward being an issue. For the past few months, I've been speaking about an employee survey. Town of Carolina Beach has never done an anonymous survey to find out how their staff thinks about them. I think it's time that we implement something and find out, are they happy? Are they gonna stay or are they not staying? Is that $1,000 bonus gonna make them happier with their job? The PAL bill, last month when we were looking at numbers, we had a nice chunk of money still sitting in the PAL bills. And we have roads that need to be addressed. I know there's a game plan, but with that extra cash, maybe we should just start pushing forward on some of the things that we can. House Bill 890. I love this thing. It was passed. It's a possibility of what could potentially allow social distancing, drinking open out in a municipal district. I hope whoever is coming on board, that's something you talk about because it has passed. Other municipalities in the area creating ways to start to have that conversation for short term, if it could work, possibly long term. I'd love to see you guys work on that. I also recommend that with new council coming on, that possibly every year we pretty much cancel the workshop in December, which then throws a lot in January for new people coming on board. I think that maybe going forward we push the workshop a week earlier. They're that committed and they're going to be sworn in. You say, hey, next week, come to the workshop, be ready to rock and roll. That's a game changer because so much happens in that first 45 days. The turn lane at State Park we spoke about, that left turn. Bruce, I know you weren't here, but if possible, get your hand on the traffic study that was presented to us 4 years ago in regard to Lake Park. With this coming on board, with what potentially could be something happening down there with Sharkies, it's time to kind of look at those numbers because that was a huge piece that was thrown at us. Last, which I think is super important, we've loosely chatted about this in the past, but I think it's time that as we're moving forward, we really kind of dive into this. A possible position that's IT / a public information officer. I think that now as we're moving forward and we want transparency and to get that camaraderie between us and our community, that now it's time to look into that as we move into this budget retreat next year, because I think that's something that's going to take a headache off of Kim. We pay a lot of money for this, and we constantly have issues where this isn't working. So if you have somebody who is doing IT, we're trying to go paperless on a lot of things here in town, and having that face of a public information officer is going to be very beneficial as we move forward because it's that key element that kind of bridges the gap between community and council. And that's it, unless something jumps back up in my head. Thank you.
Mayor, I don't have any items. The only thing I would kind of back up Joe Dan on we've had a lot of discussions that even came up in police advisory yesterday about that PIO role, whether it's a new position or all that. Obviously, we'll have to figure that out come budget time, but I do think there's a need for that. So I just want to tag Joe Dan on that one.
I really don't have any non-agenda items. I do have a statement though. This is our last full meeting, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate working with Councilman Garza, Councilman Shuttleworth, and Mayor Pierce. I'll save my emotions for next month.
Can we have both this time and next time? I'd love the motion. Make you feel good.
I had a few. I've been waiting. I agree with Joe Dan. I know that shocks some of you, but we have some PAL dollars. We've talked for the last 2 years about doing something on Carolina Beach Avenue North and Canal and Florida. And we waited for a long time for stormwater improvements and this and that, but it would be greatly appreciated by many people on the north end if we would look at how we can repave Carolina Beach Avenue North and Canal, and we have those dollars and we're sitting on bids that would allow that to happen. I would like to hear from staff where we're at on the storm damage project to get sand on the beach this fall, and if you could give us an update on that, Bruce, where do you think we're at?
The last conversation I had we met with the Corps is that plans and specs were going, and they hope to have it out to bid immediately. I mean, by then.
The last time, I mean, that was a month ago. So
Yeah, we talked.
ago.
Yeah, it was. We had a meeting with the Corps. It was about a week ago. I can't. Yeah,
Have the plans and specs gone out, and do they have a bid deadline?
That was our discussion. They were putting it out. I don't know if it went out this week, but they were. They,
I think on a regular basis, it would be helpful,
Yeah.
especially after you saw the storm that we had this past weekend and the escarpment that we had along the beach. A lot of people are concerned about that. So there's that. And I would just wanted to go over for the public and for those in attendance tonight, one of the things that was in our consent calendar that we really didn't dwell on much was the room occupancy tax reimbursement request. The town requested tonight $681,090 out of our ROT funds to be reimbursed to the town. So those are monies that are generated from our room occupancy tax. Those $681,000, a big chunk of that goes towards lifeguards, $492,000. So our taxpayers are not paying for the lifeguards. Our visitors are paying for the lifeguards. Just to give you an idea, on the sheet that was presented tonight, in the 2019-2020 budget, the amount was $1,169,000 and the town captured $408,000. In the 2021 budget, the budgeted amount for ROT dollars coming in was $1.285 million. We reimbursed $721,000. It begs the question of where the heck the rest of that money is. And then it goes to the 21-22 budget. It says our budget amount was $2 million, which includes the carryover. And right now, we're sitting on, if approved, this $680,000, we'll still be sitting on $1.4 million in the room occupancy tax fund generated by our businesses and short-term rentals and hospitality industry on this island. So for all the heartburn that we hear about short-term rentals, a lot of those people have started stepping up and paying. The hotels do. $1.4 million in excess dollars sitting there that's available to the town of Carolina Beach to pay for lifeguards and other things is not an insignificant amount of money. So we have talked as a council, and I would encourage our incoming and remaining council members and mayor-elect is to really put a shoulder behind a reallocation of the room occupancy tax funds in the next couple of years and get the county to let us spend the money the way we want. Because to be sitting on $1.4 million with our hands tied when we have other things the community could use, which would benefit our visitors. Believe me, all those people renting properties on Carolina Beach Avenue North, they would like to be able to drive to a decent condo up there without having to get in a bumper car ride. So paving the roads is probably not out of line for some of those. I'm just saying, I really would ask you guys to focus on that. It truly has been a pleasure, and that's all I had. And I'll save my emotions for next week with Jay, next month with Jay.
So are
Although I
we,
will point out, I must be remiss if I didn't get one more like Joe Dan. I had some late arrivals tonight. My two sons showed up at the end just to harass the dad in his last meeting, which didn't go unnoticed. Our town attorney, who must have you on the short sheet, immediately informed me that the hoodlums are in the house. Thank you.
well, and they're very handsome, by the way.
They
So,
get that from their mother.
I was going to say that. So our workshop, did we change that or not? Are we still doing the workshop on the 23rd?
we sent out a request that we can do it the 23rd, or we can move it to the following Tuesday, whichever.
So you
council-
moved it or didn't move it?
We were waiting for some, what council.
What do you guys want to do?
I'm okay with either date. That's what I respond.
I'm okay with
Madam Mayor, what would you like to
It's
do?
at the end there.
Hang on, let me look at my calendar.
Whoa, you have to sigh.
Oh, you've been hanging out with me too long.
All right,
So
do
you
that
mean the
Tuesday.
23rd or the 30th?
Yes.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter to me if you guys have, if you want to do it or not.
I think Ms. Ward's comment was if you did
Back
it
to
on the
back.
30th, you wouldn't have to meet the week of Thanksgiving, and it might give staff and other people an opportunity to have.
And there's the beach breakfast the day before.
So I'm good.
I mean, I personally don't care. So you want to move it?
Sure, the 30th. Let's do it.
All right. All right, and so that was my next comment. Beach Terms Breakfast on the 22nd. If you guys have something that you would like to submit, do we have anybody from the Army Corps invited? Or should we?
We can reach out to
Invite
Colonel
the
Arnold.
Colonel from Matsu.
Invite the colonel.
And if you have anything you would like on the agenda, we need to submit that to Kim. Right now, we're going to have legislative updates from our elected officials, and then some roundtable type
That's a
discussion.
good time to talk about RLT. Invite, if that's gonna invite our elects, maybe, could we? No?
I think they did.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be
It's
good.
open meeting.
All right.
What do you got? Madam Mayor?
That was it.
That was it?
That was it. That's all I got. So, if there are no further non-agenda items, I'll make a motion to go into closed session to discuss attorney-client matter in accordance with NCGS 143-318.11A3. Matters being discussed are 18 CVS 315155253 and 54, Town of Carolina Beach versus Carolina Freeman LLC, BNF Enterprises LLC, DRDK LLC, and Freeman Beach LLC. All in favor?
Aye.
Can we do it in 2 minutes?
I'm really gonna miss saying that.
I know you're gonna